Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to go through step by step the entire process to build our sturdy galvanized steel frame foundation for our outdoor kitchen. After this sturdy frame is complete, you'll be ready to skin the entire frame with cement board so you can apply either cultured stone or whatever your desired finish would be. And stick around to the end where I go over a quick overview showing the installation of the concrete pad foundation. Then watch our other videos in this outdoor kitchen series. We're going to go through installing a beautiful concrete countertop, installing a 2-post overhead pergola, and capping the entire process off by installing a beautiful stone veneer with custom poured wall caps. Grab a cup of coffee, let's get our homework done. Well, there's our outdoor kitchen in a box. Here's the opening of our first mod. Kind of as with anything, with lots of parts and pieces, it's good to lay everything out just to make sure you have everything before you start. The diagonals, all the track, all the studs, and these are their welded corners. And I gotta say, that's a little interesting, but it should hold well. Before we get started with any project, especially metalworking, got to make sure we have our specs on, especially when we're cutting stuff or grinding. If we're using any saws or anything, it's really loud in the metal, so we need some ear protection. And then we should be using some gloves. Big thing about gloves is just, again, make sure you're not using them when you're using machinery like drill presses and such like that. But they're safe to use when you're just using hand drills and stuff. You want to kind of keep away from the blood. Well, we got the first screw in. That's a landmark time. Found it a total pain in the butt to do this standing up, holding onto it with one hand. So I brought out the table. Got two of the sides put together. Figured out that it's really good to have a brand new super high quality magnet. The one I had before was a couple years old and it was not holding on to the screws. So when we went down through these two corner holes, it would fall off. So I ended up going to a big box and getting a new magnetic bit holder, and made all the difference in the world. So now we've gotten everything together. The next step is to put in these diagonals. But in order to screw them in, we need to make sure all these corners are fairly close to 90 degrees. So they have a contraption they put in, they call a square corner. We've got to chop off 2 pieces of track 4 inches long and another piece of channel stud 4 inches long, and I'll show you how they get together. Well, here we've got these square corners installed, and what we did is, cut those 2 pieces of channel about 4 inches long, put 2 screws into the frame, and cut that piece of this wall stud 4 inches long. I ended up putting 1 screw in, and then we came in here, squared everything up perfectly, and when that happened, put the second screw in. And we ended up doing that on both corners here. The back, although it's really square, I'm going to wait till we have everything lined up both ways on this concrete pad just to make sure that it's perfectly square. We're going to end up putting together some of the straight modules. These are the 2 5-footers. Starting putting together these end sections, we basically said stand up 2 of these no weld corners and square them up, put a screw in the side opposite of the hole, and then I did it on both sides. Now we'll come around and actually run a square on this deal, so everything runs square, and we'll end up putting a screw right through that hole into there. Trying to get by using an older bit, and we definitely want to use impact ready bits with the impact driver. We've got one of the 4-foot sections put together. Then we figured out with all this piping and stuff, we actually need a clear space there, so we're making what they call a jumbo. So we're attaching the 5-foot section to to the forefoot. We took apart, it used to have a crossbar here, just like at the end here, but this way we'll be able to fit in the combo unit and a door with the sink here. It's coming together really good. Gotten everything kind of put together just for a quick rough out. The next step will be to get everything lined up and square with the world on this base. Once we get everything squared up there, it'll allow us to cut these final pieces here, make the diagonal work. Then we'll start piecing in the grill stuff and the sink stuff and everything else. So now that we got these all put together, the next step is kind of fine-tuning everything. And then you can see some of these just don't line up perfect. So what we'll end up doing right now is kind of loosening things, getting everything squared up with each other, and screwing this whole section together. Okay, so now we're in the process of putting in these connector plates. And we'll end up bringing them right on in, being able to screw these together. So as you can see, we've got these connectors on, and we ended up buying a whole stack of them from Home Depot, the big box. Over here, wherever you have connectors that stick out a little too far, quite often I recommend you just kind of knock them in for safety. It's starting to take shape. So we've cut a bunch of these lengths of that decking, put it underneath. I'll end up squaring everything up, but we threw a couple of these sharper point screws in. I used a level, basically a straight edge, just to make sure that everything is straight all the way along this long line before I screwed it down. Okay, so the next step here is to actually start putting in the cutouts for the grills. And there'll be a side burner that's about the size of this plywood. And then there'll be a sink here and countertop and some drawers and stuff. So kind of take a look at, do we want the grills centered or off center just a little bit? And I think we're leaning towards off center, which will give us a little more working space here that we can set stuff while we're cooking and such. And this is a box that all the little cutout kits come in for all of our appliances. There's a grill kit, combo kit, there's a sink, a single door kit. You see it's got all the parts and pieces shrink wrapped together. As we're getting ready to do the cutouts, it's good to confirm all your specifications. We're going to have this 36-inch grill, and it's going to require a 35-inch cutout that is 22 inches deep. And then this is going to be the combo drawer system underneath, so we got these dimensions to work with. Here's what ends up coming in the grill kit. You got 4 of the catcher tracks, which are what will go on the back frame, and these will catch into. So this will be the front and back frame, they'll connect there. Got these for the horizontal members, they'll catch in there that way. Then there's 2 long tracks and 2 cross studs, and they'll end up going across like yay. Okay, to make these cuts that are going to be the 35 1/4, we end up taking this track off, bringing it over to the chop saw and chopping out that middle piece. This step isn't necessarily required, but I just like to get rid of all the sharp burrs. So we need to go in and put the vertical studs here. So we end up marking off distance there and coming up here and putting it in here, and then we'll end up screwing it together I'm going to throw a level on it just to make sure that we're all square with the world. Okay, we've got the two sides in, the two catcher tracks. We've made a mark here, so the next step is we'll end up putting the catcher track here and over here. One hint I found is if you put these screws in, once they go through the first piece into the second, they tend to want to walk it up. So I've actually started it down just a little bit so when it walks up, it comes flush. Here now is the left and right stud. From here to here measured 10 3/16. So we made a line in the same spot there and we'll bolt it down. Here are the two types of connectors that they supply with this grill kit, so you don't have to be using tin snips to cut like rabbit ears and such. Normally for across the top they have this deal they call a countertop, like horizontal connector. You snap it on like that, and then you have your crossbar go that way. And this is typically called a vertical connector because you'd end up putting it on the side like this, and again coming in as a tube across like yay. Because these are studs with the opening, they're actually using these vertical connectors here because if you put this on, there'd be nothing for this to connect to. So now, after a bunch of figuring, we figured out what we need to do as far as the heights. There'll be a 2 1/8 inch countertop between the 1/2 inch Durock and 1 5/8 concrete. And to come down that 10 1/8, this will be the grill crossbar. And then we did some figuring for the doors and everything because we wanted to be consistent all the way around. And we started coming up a nominal 4 inches off the ground here. And then we just found a nice average, which is about 3 inches off the bottom. So even if it's uneven off of the pavers, we can go an even 3 inches off the ground, off the bottom of this track all the way around. And then we needed for these particular doors, it was a 19 inches between the two openings. I did 19 1/4, so we have just a little wiggle room. Okay, with that last vertical connector in sight, the next step is to measure the length of the cross tracks, just like we did for this back one. They're hopefully pretty much the same, but we'll measure it exact just to make sure that we're right on. So this one here, we'll cut it right about 35 1/2, which is where the other one I think was 35 1/8. That's 35 1/2, and that also is 35 1/2. So we'll probably cut them, you know, just a little shy of 35 1/2 so they all fit in there nice. Well, this is the finished product, the lower door there, and the grill cut out here. We've now started on where the side burner is going to be. We ended up cutting out the space between here. It happened to be 12 3/8 for this side burner. We're starting to put in the two studs now. Here are the parts for the slide-in side burner kit. Back at it, working on putting in the cutout kits for the grill's side burner. There'll be a sink here, a couple doors. It's a nice cooler day today. The last couple days we've been out here, it's been well into the 90s. Okay, so we've set it up. Had to get a couple cross struts there. We're using the track. We got basically, so from here out, got to have a 24-inch clearance to those two parts, and then we'll end up putting a support underneath everything. Okay, so this is the finished slide-in burner. At some point we'll end up putting a stud that comes down here to the ground just to give a little more strength to this. Well, it's officially done for now. Ready to start putting the backsplash on. Here are all the parts for all the backsplashes. We got some tracks and some studs. Started putting together the wall for the backsplash. You can see right now it's just laying on top of the cabinets. The construction is just a little bit different. It's got 2.5 inch wide instead of like, I think it's 1.5 inches, so it's a little wider. They're a little thinner. The same kind of deal. There's tracks across the bottom and the top, and then these studs here. I spent some time laying out where the Durac's going to hit, so we go with 3x5 sheets every 3 feet. There'll be a seam right on one of the studs. Well, it took a little bit of time getting all this put together with all the little straps. But anyway, we got her on. We had a lot more studs we can put in there, so we're getting it so the spacing's not going to be so far on a Durac. We're using these straps here to tie it together. And we have them like every couple. If you look at it, it's like really sturdy. Got this backsplash basically put in place now. What we're doing is bolting in the studs and all these open spaces. And as soon as we get this all taken care of, the next step, we got the cement board that we put on. Now that we have that sturdy framework installed, let's do a quick overview of the process we went through to get the concrete foundation poured. We started out putting down some blue painter's tape just to see the proportions and the lines, to see if there's any changes we wanted to make, and just overall to see how it would lay out in the area. Then we brought in some friends of ours who are concrete wizards. We wanted to get this project done quickly, but we wanted to make sure it was solid and dead flat. Here's a quick shot showing where those blue painter's tape's lines were. They actually are pretty close to the finished product. And we're working on getting all of the pavers out of the way. We got some chalk lines done. What we're going to do, run a saw and saw cut them for the forms. And hopefully tomorrow morning, we'll be ready to start pouring. Well, here's the finished product of the poured concrete base. They did an excellent job with both the laser and then just taking long levels. The thing should just be dead on, so our countertop and everything else should be perfectly flat.